Now we are at the first session of the security operations. Most of the concepts what we have seen in other domains would appear here also as an operational viewpoint. We might have touched upon these topics earlier in other domains as a concept, but here how do you practice? That is what the security operation is about. First, we will take a brief look at data loss prevention or data leak prevention. The latest news in the papers you might have seen, the data leak affects 145 million Equifax customers. Similar thing, Yahoo is also revealing that full extent of 2013 breach. Several customers' data got compromised. So this Equifax CEO leaves after this massive breach. So you can imagine the amount of loss due to this data leak. Now let us define, let us see what a data leak prevention is. A suite of technologies to reduce the loss of sensitive information. These solutions are implemented in order to safeguard the data. Data loss prevention is a strategy for making sure that end users do not send sensitive or critical information outside the corporate network. The data should not go out without any purpose. In the sense, illegally it should not go out. Data, nobody should be copying and taking it out. Focuses on monitoring of information at rest, in use and in motion. All the three types. Catalog sensitive data in the organization. It lists, the objective is to list the catalog the sensitive data, control the movement of sensitive information across the network and on end user devices. What are the solutions? Now first let us take a look at data at rest. A DLP solution should be able to identify and log where information is stored throughout the organization. If you are going to be procuring a DLP solution, that should be capable of identifying and logging the details about the data. Identify sensitive files from spreadsheet to word processing documents. Whatever may be, whatever format it is available, the DLP solution should be able to identify sensitive data. Whatever they are on, if it is on a file server or a storage network or endpoints, wherever it is, the DLP solution should be in a position to identify sensitive files. Crawlers go through each system and the data store based on set of rules to identify the information. Crawlers is an application. It's an agent or what they call as which runs in background. Crawlers go through each system under the data store. Wherever data is stored, it goes through one by one and as per the set of rules. As per the data owner, they might have given information on how to identify. So based on that, the rules are created, and the crawler uses these rules to identify sensitive data or any data, able to list first all the data and then finally arrive at the sensitive data. Similar thing for the data in motion, that is in the network. DLP solution captures and analyzes the network traffic and passively monitors the network. This solution, whatever one is going to implement, recognize the data streams to capture, which one to capture, assembles the collected packets and reconstructs the file. It is needed to to extract a meaningful information. Just packets will have bits and pieces of information. This solution has to collect the related packets and then construct it to files. analysis rules are same, but the rules for analysis is same, whether it is data in rest or whether the data it is in motion. The rules are same. Alerts are blocks in real or near real time. Alerts to be created, otherwise how do I know that the data is going outside? Alerts or it should also try to block it in real time, or at least in near real time. Encrypted data must be decrypted and re-encrypted either by DLP or with the supporting device. The DLP should be capable of encrypting and decrypting, because otherwise it will not know what is inside. Now endpoint, this is more vulnerable. Endpoints, users, monitoring data movement from actions taken by end users. Copying data, they may copy data to the USB stick or sending information to printer, or cutting and pasting sensitive information. That is why you might have seen certain application when you run, they would have disabled the copy and paste. That is to prevent data from being copied. Implemented by an agent on the end user system may not be able to use full rule set, so can leave gaps in the entire system. So you might have defined 100 rules or number of rules. Implementing those rules, there will be some gaps. So it is possible that some are left. There will be gaps. But the focus is on highest risk. What are the benefits one can expect if they deploy a data loss prevention solution? We can be assured that we can protect critical business data and intellectual property, improve compliance like rule sets for PCI HIPAA, because these rules mandate that the companies should have implemented a data loss prevention solution. So it helps in improving the compliance, reduce data breach risks, which results in financial risk, improve business process, understanding how the data is used from a DLP, optimize disk space and network bandwidth, like unwanted files get deleted, stagnant files, streaming videos, etc. It also helps in detecting rogue and malicious software. This is additional benefit, like when you try to prevent the loss of data by cataloging and then identifying the sensitive data, you may also come across infected files and or even malicious software. When we talk about the security operations, how we can miss incidents, there will be full of incidents. So let us see how we handle incidents and how we practice investigations. Investigations could be operational, or it could be regular operations, or it could be criminal investigation or a civil investigation, or an e-discovery. What is e-discovery? Electronic discovery. It is refers to any process in which electronic data is sought, located and secured and searched with the intent of using it as an evidence in a civil or a criminal case. That is e-discovery. Here the process is to identify, collect, process, review, analyze, produce it, and you produce and then present. These are all the sequence of activities that can be performed in e-discovery. Computer forensics. It is a marriage of computer science, IT, and IT engineering and law, several subjects together. Computer forensics guidelines. Upon seizing an evidence, action should not change the evidence. That is the first and foremost. Only trained people should have access to original evidences. To be more careful, action should be fully documented. What all actions performed during the course of after seizing the evidence, everything actions should be documented. An individual needs to be responsible, one single individual needs to be responsible for actions with respect to digital evidences. The incident scene. Every incident should be treated as a potential crime scene, though we have not proven the scene, but still that much due care needs to be shown. That way evidence will be preserved, which may needed later. Now, what are the steps in the scene? Identify the scene, then protect the environment. It could be a application and server or whatever environment. Just for example, I'm saying, or it could be a hard disk opened like this. Identify evidence and potential source of evidences. Collect the evidences. Minimize the degree of contamination. When you collect and store, it should not get contaminated. For example, if it is going to be a live session, the memory dump should be preserved. Otherwise, it will change. This is an interesting Locard's principle of this exchange. When a crime is committed, the perpetrator leaves something behind and takes something with them. Exchange, that is what he calls. But that is very true, and in many incidents we have seen this. The rules of evidence should be authentic and should be accurate and should be complete. It should be convincing and admissible. What means admissible means is it should be relevant material that determines the fact, the material related to that case, and obtained legally, that is, it should be competent. Some of the examples here: real evidence is hard disk that is from the collected from the crime scene being produced at the court of law. Also, the computer logs can be submitted as evidence. That is documentary evidence. Chain of custody. This is a terminology very often referred to. A process of completely documenting the evidence. Like the evidence custodian documents and tracks the handling of evidence, when it happened, where, by whom was evidence gathered. The document should have all these details, like detailed identification of original evidence, like a serial number, labels, whatever on it, etc. Where it was stored and who has access to it. How many copies made, what all the copies, details of the copies made. Live evidence is a RAM, that is computer memory. Taking snapshot of memory is recommended before switching off the affected system. If the crime has happened on a live system, then the memory has to be saved, like snapshots of memory should be saved before they decide to switch off the system. As a part of investigation, media analysis also conducted. Recovery of information or evidence from media such as hard drives, optical drives, memory, etc. includes recovery of deleted files and damaged, overwritten or degaussed, reused or hidden. So if the evidence was hard disk, it could have got damaged. So one should be in a position to recover files from the damaged hard disk. Sometimes it gets overwritten. The perpetrator tries to overwrite to delete. So he can also try to hide and degauss. Even degauss is the maximum damage one can do. Degauss is passing magnetic energy onto the hard disk so that the files are erased. So one should be in a position even to go to that extent of retrieving, but how far it is possible is questionable, but one should be in a position to go to that extent to recover files, deleted files. Also network analysis, like analyze and examination of the data from the network logs and the activity of potential evidence. The network logs include IDS and IPS logs, network flow data, firewall logs, all the logs related to the network devices. Software analysis also needed sometimes, the review of the source code to find whether there is any backdoors or logic bombs. These both are codes written by the perpetrator, who it's not a legal code. It gets inserted by the attacker, so it runs whenever he wants. He might have pre-programmed it to run at particular point of time. Like logic bomb works like that. Backdoors are different entry to the program. So this, when you review the source code, you will be in a position to identify these backdoors or logic bombs present in the code. Even compiled code to be inspected, machine codes also to be inspected for any suspicious items. Intellectual property disputes. Trojan horse, what's its purpose? Trojan horse is another type of malware. As you know, we have referred this several times during the course. This is a illegal code that sits in between the legal code, and it downloads itself and then starts executing. So in the process of software analysis, you would be in a position to identify all such issues, whether the code has got similar such issues. Also content analysis, the systematic analysis of the code's purpose, why the code has been, for what purpose it has been used, and who has written this code. Author identification attempts to determine who is the creator or author of the software or the program in question as a part of the software analysis. Now evidences more evidences are now listed here, with smartphones, personal digital assistants, tablets, special tools and techniques to image devices. Reading and copying of embedded devices alter the data, destroys the evidence. So one should be careful. One should make sure that no data is altered, no contamination happens with respect to the evidences. Incident handling, how to handle the incident. The first and foremost is triage. This triage is a terminology used in medical terminology. Normally in military, they first prioritize the people, those who got affected, like due to the bombing or fighting. So this, with respect to the computer forensic, what here is, you prioritize based on this severity of the incident, like what to look first and what to look second. So whenever the severity is high, you have to look that first. Then that is how they approach. And then investigate containment, limit the damage. The investigator simply cannot ignore that if the damage is going on happening. First, that has to be contained. It has to be reduced or stopped. Analysis: what happened, damage done, possible response, and resolve and follow-up. How to recover from the incident. That is the last final step. So this is how the incident handling happens. Now there are big organizations have got incident response teams. Their main priority is to do these triage, investigation and containment, analysis and recovery. This team's priority. Incidents response is first is the planning, then coordination, execution of mitigation. Unless you mitigate, you cannot recover back. Interviewing is another process during the investigation. The individuals may have information or knowledge relevant to the incident, and need properly trained interviewers who don't influence or intimidate people or make uncooperative. They should be friendly and take the information. Due process to be followed during the interviews. Interviewee rights is to be respected. Have witnessed to the interview. When you are interviewing a person relating to an incident, or one witness should be present. Legal legal counsel also to be present. When the incident is closed, the final activity is reporting and documenting. That is debriefing, whole entire thing. And the feedback is important, but normally often overlooked phase, this final phase. Once the incident is resolved, once it is recovered, they don't give much importance to documenting, but it is very important because from this lessons learned can be very useful. A formal process to document the lessons learned. Include team members and representatives from the affected business unit when you do the debriefing, and you include all the people, related people, and you present to them the final report. Use information to adapt or modify policy, and use this information, whatever outcome of this incident, accordingly we have to adapt. The policy might need some changes. So, and similarly the guidelines. Jurisdiction is very difficult with respect to computer crimes because there is no national border on the internet. So jurisdiction is very complicated. Computer crimes ignore national borders. Legislation effects also different in different countries. Sitting at one place, the person might have committed crime at another place, another country. So complex one jurisdiction. Substantive and procedural laws. What is admissible? You have to find out. Data collection, preservation. Who will take action? Which country should take action? That is what I was referring to. If a person is sitting in one country and trying to do damage there in another place, which law? In this session, we will look at IDS and IPS. IDS is intrusion detection system, and IPS is intrusion prevention system. As the name, by the name itself, you might have understood that these systems, this is a combination of hardware, software, and a network endpoint devices. A technology that alerts organization to adverse or unwanted activity, IDS. When something goes wrong, you get alerts. Also, audit logs gets created on the real-time events. Detect intrusions based on rules. Also detects failures, violations, whatever unwanted activity, which is already documented as a rule. Active and passive response possible from IDS. This is in addition to the firewall device, the IDS or IPS. Host and network focused. This focuses on host computer and as well as the network. Knowledge and behavior based detection. You might have heard knowledge based systems like artificial intelligence and things like that. So this is based on knowledge base. It will have a database, knowledge base, and based on that the detection will happen, like the patterns. This kind of a pattern is okay, and this kind of a pattern, like for example, a person working normally who works till 5 p.m. if he is working only 1 or 2 days, if he is working till 8 p.m. it is a different pattern. That kind of an recognition it recognizes. Now we just take a look at IPS, intrusion prevention. Monitors activity like IDS. It monitors activity similar to IDS, that is intrusion detection system, but automatically takes preventive action. That is the idea here. If unacceptable activity is detected, it is able to prevent or block that activity. If somebody is copying a file, then it may not allow copying the file. There are two types of IDS. One is network based and another is host based. First, the network NIDS, that is network-based IDS, can be part of a network's device such as a router. It could be part of router itself, or it can be a separate device, a dedicated device to monitor the traffic because it is network-based. Focuses on network attacks, encrypted traffic, and pose challenge to this device because it has to decrypt, and decryption, it is not possible unless and otherwise you have the key. Now, the host-based IDS, it is a software on the host system. This monitors the host activities monitors and reports file, disk, and process-related activities. In this session, let us focus on how to control privileged accounts. That a careful supervision of accounts that are given special privileges on IT systems. These are all called privileged accounts because that need certain accounts need certain higher privileges, but these accounts are to be controlled. Let's focus on how to control. First and the foremost principle is need to know or least privilege principle. This is fundamental characteristics of access control for meeting security objectives. A user or a process is given no more access privilege than necessary to perform the job, task, or function. So he should not have even little more, no more, just necessary to perform the job. That is the least privilege or need to know. Limited access to only resources and tools necessary to perform the assigned job. Also the tools, he cannot have access to other tools. Whatever is needed for that particular job, he should only access to have that tool only. Limited resources that can be accessed. Even the resources also to be limited. And also actions also to be limited. What actions? Limited actions can be performed. Everywhere you put a check. Managing user accounts, managing accounts using groups and roles is one method. Efficient management of user access by assigning them to a group or roles. Individuals may be set up in one or more groups based on their function or role. If groups are based on a job function, this is role-based access control, if it is based on roles. Least privileged access is determined for each group or role with the help of the owner or as per the policy. If users are transferred, they are simply removed from the role. No longer they should be kept in that. Groups and roles have appropriate permission and rights allocated. Whatever is required to that group and that role only on least privileged basis it is allocated. Traditionally, there are 4 types of privileged accounts. Even now, this kind of user accounts exist. Root or built-in administrator account. They call it as a root in Unix system servers. Other servers they call administrator account. There are something called service account, which is used for service. Administrator account. Separately, it's application administrator. Maybe this is first one is the system administrator. Last is the power user. Then comes the other regular ordinary users. They are least privileged, minimum privilege for them. Root or the system administrator account, default administrator account to manage the device or the system. This is used for starting up the system or shutting down or doing some maintenance work, things like that. The security concern here is, as a shared account, there is no accountability. Like if there are 3 or 4 system administrators and if they all share the single account, then there is no accountability. Preferably it is disabled in favor of individual assigned accounts. Default passwords. When the system comes, it comes with a default password for the administrative accounts. Should be changed before adding it to the putting it into the production. Should be logged, and logs should be always reviewed. Regular in the frequent intervals. The log files should be log should be first enabled, and then once it is created on a regular basis, it has to be reviewed. Multi-factor authentication to be implemented for this administrative accounts. If remote access is allowed, you have very strong encryption needs to be used. Now we talk about the service account. Accounts used to provide privileged access to system services and applications. For example, one software needs a particular account for installation, on a separate account for installation and maintenance, then it is a service account. Similarly, certain services also uses account, like some network services requires a separate account. Account has to be created. No physical user will be using that account, but the network processors they use that account. These are all called service account. Service may have multiple internal default accounts. Yeah, it is possible. Password for service account should be strong and controlled. The strategy for changing the password to provide continued integrity, frequency of changing the password and things like that. Strategy to turn on access for accounts, turn off the access for the accounts that may have been compromised. If an account has been compromised, it should be immediately disabled, because the perpetrator will already know how to get in. He might know the password, so it needs to be immediately disabled. Now we talk about the application administrator account. Applications uses for installation and maintenance purpose uses a separate account. So this account given named individual administrative access to perform maintenance activities. That is advisable. Give a named individual administrator. It is not a generic one. Should be different from the normal account. Like if I am going to be the application administrator, my normal account is one, and for administrative purposes I will use another account. So there is a difference. While logs are also going to be different, what I'm doing here and what I'm doing there. Revalidate need for these accounts on a regular basis. That is another important activity. Sometimes the application itself might have decommissioned, but the account will be existing there. There is the chance of misuse. So it has to be revalidated frequent, regular basis. The accounts. All actions taken by the administrator account should be audited. That is an important aspect. All privileged account, the logs also to be monitored, reviewed, but in addition to that, an independent auditor should be auditing these accounts, privileged accounts. Consider external logging system, as there is a risk that administrator can tamper with the log files. Yeah, the administrator should not have access to the log files, because he might change the log files. So it is better consider logging outside the external logging done externally outside the server. Power user account for users who have greater control of the system but do not need administrative access. May be allowed to install software on their own desktop systems or reset password for local area. This is the privilege is less than the administrator, but it is more than the normal user, power users. Again, this to be revalidated regularly. If the power user is not there, then there is no need for that account. Remove when it is no longer needed. For multi-factor authentication to be implemented. Now the system administrator. Separation of duties by having a database administrator, network administrators as separate roles. If a same person is performing all the three roles like a system administrator, database administrator and a network administrator, then there is a chance of manipulation. So that is why in an individual roles should have the roles should not overlap. It is called segregation of duties. That is separation of duties or segregation of duties. Again, the least privilege principle to be implemented. Only access to the necessary systems only, not more. Monitoring a log where system administrator can't access. Yeah, that is we saw earlier also. It should be external to the server, and monitor and reconcile with the changes or the configuration requests. Whether configuration request as per the request it has been implemented or is there any deviation. Separation of duties. Separation of duties prevent malicious activities. One cannot take advantage of having all the access by implementing separation of duties. Background investigation to be performed while doing recruitment. One has to check the previous record. Many companies perform this activity, background checks, before issuing the offer letter. Then another important activity that can prevent this malicious intent is job rotation. So you can review the work of others. When you rotate the job once in 3 months, let us suppose, the new person can review the previous person's job there. So, and this person's job will be reviewed by the next person who is going to take over. Operators are special category. Nowadays this operator only exists in large computer centers or in a mainframe computer centers. They also use privileged accounts. Use of privileges monitored by the review of logs. What are the typical activities these operators they perform? Typical activities are privileges. They would be implementing the initial program load, interruption to the boot process, or similar they may do, but this may cause integrity issue if when the system is booting, if it is interrupted. So that is a risk there. And monitoring execution of the system, the operator monitors and he mounts the volumes, controlling the job flow, which one will run first, which one will run after that. Like that he has the privilege to change the privilege of that jobs, controlling job flow. Bypass label processing. He has the privilege to bypass the label processing, unauthorized access to data. Like we have seen earlier about the classification. So once you have this particular level of clearance, then only you would be in a position to access this classified information. So this person has a privilege to bypass that. He can directly read. Some other responsibilities or privileges of these operators are he can do renaming, relabeling of resources, view sensitive data, reassessment of ports and lines, sending sensitive data to other location. He can manipulate all those things. So here again the least privilege. Do not need access to every system, only if needed. That principle to be followed. And monitoring to be done, logged where operators can't access. So operators should not be in a position to alter the logs. Separation of duties to prevent malicious activities. Background investigations, again like we saw earlier, before giving the offer, this person's background should have been verified to make sure that there is no previous problem or issues. Now the system, the security administrator. Now so far we have been seeing about the operator, system administrator, like network administrator, database. Now we are coming to the security administrator. may provide oversight of security operations, define security settings for the system, checks and balances, audit and review the system administrator. The job of the security administrator is to review the job of these other administrators. There are one more type of role like help desk personnel responsible for the aspects of account management, password resets, monitored, and background is to be investigated for these people, because all the password change requests come to the help desk, and they can misuse they themselves can create password reset request on their own without real user requesting. Clearances, suitability, and background checks. We were seeing subjects should have clearances and the object should be classified. So that is in that sense we are talking about the clearances here. A security personnel should review the account and assign privileges on a regular basis, whether the person is following the clearances and the labeling rules. Also validate user trustworthiness and revalidate the privileges. If he has done any fraudulent activity, then the revalidation needs to happen for that privilege. He might lose the privileges. Account validation, review account activity for dormant accounts. Dormant is unused account for a long time. Inactive accounts should be disabled. Job rotation is another important activity that can prevent malicious activities, can reveal the activities outside the normal operating procedures, highlights the errors, like the previous person has done a lot of errors, then it comes out. People come to know by implementing job rotation. Exposes fraudulent behavior of the earlier person who was performing that role. Provides trained backup coverage. So that way you have backup if you are rotating, then you have several backups. And also it is very useful for succession planning. If he is going to leave, who is going to be the successor? The person who was rotating his job could be a best choice. And the most important is job enrichment opportunities. This is an additional benefit. In this session, let us look at the information life cycle. Informations get created, then used, then destroyed. 3 stages. Actually, creation, use, and destruction of information. Protect it against unauthorized activity. Destroy when it is no longer needed. That is what at each stage it has to be kept in mind, that protect it against unauthorized activity. Destroy it whenever it is no longer needed. Now coming to the destruction, when no longer needed, when the information has not got no value, it has to be deleted. The organization tend to hoard information, that is, they keep on piling information, but it becomes unmanageable at one point of time. Document retention to be followed for legal reasons, but one should have a retention schedule. Like the organization should have identified the retention and other policy during the initial phase itself, and it should have been documented, and the guidelines should have been distributed to the employees so that they follow the retention schedule. And destroy it after the set date or time period. This is decided and then documented in the schedule. Retention schedule. The input for the retention schedule is the date, when it has to be, as per the legal reason or whatever reasons. What are the biggest advantages is the storage cost gets reduced, because today terabytes of data are getting created and the storage cost has become high. So this helps in reducing the storage cost. Moreover, the searching and indexing is faster now, because there is less data. It is able to quickly find the application. Litigation and e-discovery is less problematic. Whenever you have less data, then automatically the litigation related to those are going to be less. In this session, let us see the SLA, that is Service Level Agreement. Whenever the operations are there, the SLAs are very important. SLA describes the service expected by a customer from a supplier. Includes the metrics to be used for the measurement. Service providers may have different service levels at different prices, because if you want higher like quality, then the price varies. So that is what this means. What are the key components of SLA? One is the service and another is management. Service includes what is supplied, when it should be supplied, availability, and then responsibility of each party, escalation process, metrics, and things like that. Whereas the management activity is measurement and reporting of the performance, dispute resolution, and then process for changing the agreement. There might be a need to change the agreement. What is the process to be followed? Monitoring of the performance measured by the service provider. It is better consider a third party monitoring, so that it will be an independent thing. Types of matrices: service availability, the time the service is available, defect rate, the percentage, technical quality measurement using analysis tool. For quality, for example, if you take the code application development, the number of bugs could be one of the typical matrices. And then the security, controllable security measures demonstrating due care. These various securities can be, various metrics can be defined in order to measure the performance of the supplier. And a regular review of the metrics is needed, because the business might have changed. They might have added a new location or a new product. So accordingly the change has to be reflected, and technical environment might have changed. So once you review these metrics, you will understand these facts, and accordingly a modification is done. Like sometimes the workload itself might have changed. For example, a particular processing might have taking 8 hours, means now it might be taking 4 hours. That you will understand when you review the metrics. So that means the workload has changed, reduced. So it can be used for something else. Metrics measurement tools and process have improved. Yeah, we can, the tools what we are using currently may be outdated, and much better tools might be available. And also we might want to add some more parameters to the metric. Whenever you need to make a change to the SLA, seek legal counsel assistance prior to accepting the changes. Slow, there are several changes are there, and you have identified using the metrics, but before making a change, better to consult with a legal One of the primary objectives of the security operations is to protect the assets. In this session, we will look at various asset protection methods and issues. First is the asset inventory. Hardware and software inventories are to be maintained. Security operation focuses on protecting valuable assets. Not necessarily that all the assets are to be protected. The decision is based on value of the asset versus cost of protecting it. If the value is going to be very less, then there is no point in spending more money to getting it protected. Instead, you can buy a new asset. It depends on the value of the asset, how much you spend to protect it. We first look at the physical assets, which is tangible assets. Even the physical assets can be split into facilities and hardware. First, let us take a look at the facilities. Ensure facilities have got appropriate controls to sustain the IT environment. The IT environment may need to be protected well with fire detection systems and fire suppression systems, air conditioning systems and heating, water and sewage systems, reliable power supply and distribution systems. This is to protect the computing IT environment. See, IT department can be both the owner and custodian of these assets. And the protection. Hardware physically secure data center facilities and locked server rooms for critical systems. Most of these data centers are always under lock because no need for normal users to enter to the computer room, server rooms. Access for named individuals with least privilege to be provided. Only named individuals, very few. Temporary access for occasional visitors to be arranged for the server rooms. Outside of the secure facility, that is outside of the computer room, we have assets like mobile assets like laptops, desktops, smartphones, tablets. Solutions such as cable locking devices can be deployed, like the laptop's security, they normally use this cable locking device. Regarding the printers, uncollected printout is a risk. There is a chance that sensitive information may land in a wrong hand. So training and awareness is required in order to overcome this kind of issue. So also authenticate to print in order to print can be implemented. Modern printers come equipped with this facility. One has to take a printout, they have to authenticate themselves and then only they can issue a print command. So that is another control. They can protect confidential information that way. And the network devices secure locations with strong and physical security controls. For example, if it is a communication room, that is network backbone room, if somebody could enter into that and plug out a cable, then the network is gone down and everything is going to fail. So there, a very strong protection. It should be locked always, and only authorized people should be allowed inside. Then comes the media. We first saw the facilities and how to protect the facility, then the hardware. Now let us take a look at the media management. Media includes soft copy and hard copy. Soft copies are magnetic tapes, hard drives, etc., like optical drive, CD-ROM, DVD, solid-state discs, memory cards, USB sticks. Whereas hard copy is printed material and microfiche. Soft copy media containing sensitive information or confidential information should be encrypted. That is the protection mechanism. The hard disks can be encrypted. Any media can be encrypted. In some instances, information is transported between media storage locations. Even the BCP and DRP mandates that the backup copies of are to be stored at a remote location. So when you try to store the media, backup media at a remote location, you should consider physical transport. It should be really secure. And also one can consider before shipping it out, it should be encrypted. Electronic transport of network backups, shadowing, electronic vaulting data can be sniffed. That is a risk. Protect transmission with encryption to mitigate. The encrypt data always, it is advisable to encrypt data during transportation. even which is stored data at rest, encrypt again. Either it is a removable media or virtual storage or a cloud storage, always encrypt in order to protect them from unauthorized access. Some type of media requires special protection, like the software. It may get corrupted, so it may need a particular temperature and things like that. Weak controls on software can subject to a system to compromise through introduction of backdoors and malicious code. This is another thing. If you expose the source code, to unwanted people, they might try to, add to it, add a backdoor to it, or add a malicious code to it. Simple example is that, in an application, one can introduce a code which will not ask password for particular user ID. So if one person has done that, then he has created a backdoor. He can enter anytime. So that is why it has to be protected. Original copies of software should be controlled through a software librarian. It is better to appoint a software librarian with the original copy strictly controlled. Installed software should have appropriate access control in place to prevent unauthorized access. Whatever is already installed and running. Removable media poses the maximum risk because one can take it away. Portable devices such as USB sticks and external hard disks should be encrypted if used. Users may purchase their own and use without encryption. That one has to be careful, and users have to be educated there, awareness training. Don't know when the information is leaving, because we don't get alerts. If somebody is going to take data on a USB stick, how do we get an alert? Don't know when the information is breached. User has little incentive to report a breach. Why should I report the breach? That kind of an attitude. Need to mitigate concerns over removable media. For some of the typical mitigations the organizations do is they disable the USB ports, they disable even the administrator rights on their users' laptop and desktops. They disable the CD-ROM drive so that nothing can go out of it using through those media. Monitor and restrict USB and other external ports. Monitor the use of DVD and other writable devices. Monitoring is difficult, then one can disable it, so that if needed, the users can take permission and they would enable it for the purpose, whatever they need. Mandatory encryption with strong authentication. Now, encryption should be made mandatory. Monitor and log information transferred to the media. Keep an inventory of removable media. Have remote wipe capability. Use a geolocate capability. This geolocate and remote wipe, most of the places you might see again and again. This is to locate, if a person is traveling with his laptop or a company laptop, one should be in a position to locate where he is. That is the geolocating capability, whereas wipe is removing the data on that device, remote wipe capability. Let us talk about the virtual storage now. There are different types of virtual storage. The pooling of physical storage from multiple network storage device into a single a device, what appears to be a single device, controlled centrally. There are host-based, there are storage-based and network-based devices. Host-based software running on the host gives a higher level view of the logical partitions than the traditional view of disks and partitions, which gives much more flexibility in allocating storage to applications and users. A storage device-based primary storage controller provides the virtualization and allows attachment of other storage devices. And the last one is the network-based storage. Storage virtualization based on the network devices, the most commonly available form of virtualization, layer of abstraction between the host performing I/O and the storage controllers providing the storage capacity. And now we talk about the cloud storage, which is now cheaper and available. Here the provider is responsible for availability and the physical environment. Many distributed resources acting as a one. We saw that earlier. It may appear to be one, but each device may be at a different location. Highly fault tolerant through redundancy, highly durable through versioned copies. What are the issues, concerns with respect to the cloud storage? As data is distributed at a different location, the risk of unauthorized physical access to the data may be high. The number of people with access to the data who may be compromised, like one can bribe and then get the access because it is remote. Data travels further through more networks with greater risk of interception. Sharing storage and network with others may expose access to your data through error and fault or bug. So how do we mitigate? So the mitigation technique is to encrypt. Encryption is the best. Archival and offline storage, backup conducted on regular basis in order to meet the RPO, that is recovery point objective. We have seen recovery point objective and recovery time objective. These two are key terms during disaster recovery and business planning, business continuity planning. Tested restoration of information. Just not backup is enough. But once it is backed up, it has to be tested whether one is able to get it back. May need to be recovered quickly in disaster. That is recovery time objective. That is to meet the recovery time objective. One should be in a position to quickly restore the data. Restoration may need to be performed in the correct sequence. Yeah, that is another important aspect. If the media is multiple, what sequence they have to restore, that should be labeled in the media. Information that is not needed for continual use but required for historical purposes, those should be archived. May need to be migrated to a new media when keeping for a long time. If you wish to keep a particular data for a longer period of time, so it has to be migrated to a new media. For example, now no longer these floppy disks are in use. If somebody has taken 30 years ago some floppy disk, they should have, unless and otherwise they have migrated to a new media, they may not be able to retrieve it now. That is one example. Both types require a strong physical access control and review for relevance. In this session, let us understand the different aspects of recovery strategy. When do we need a recovery strategy? A strategy anyway we will identify in the beginning, but when do we need to recover? If a major incident has happened and the entire operation got affected, in that case we may have to recover. So we should have decided about the strategy, how we are going to recover, and what we are going to do, and what is that important, what is not important, which one should be recovered first. That kind of a strategy one should have already decided and documented. And also the recovery strategy is driven by the RTO, that is recovery time objective, how soon I should get back to normal, so that the appropriate strategy can be selected. If here the cost is involved, RTO is very less, recover the operation within the short period, then the cost of arrangements is going to be very high. We will see all those in detail in the subsequent slides. Now, surviving site, I really have redundancy built in to avoid having to move to another location if possible. Like if you have built more redundancy inside, then you don't have to relocate for in case of a very major disaster. Internally you could have arranged something like a particular, also it depends on the amount of damage. If one particular portion is not available, is unavailable, then in the same building some training and conference rooms can be utilized to house the employees, and then they can continue doing their work with their laptops from the conference room. If the site itself not available, then one has to move to another location, or one has to work from home. These are all some of the major decisions that are to be taken during the disaster. Mainly recovery is only after a major disaster. But smaller, this strategy what we are talking about right now, but recovery even from a simple incident is also possible. But we are discussing here a major disaster. After a major disaster, how do we recover? Implement a backup strategy here, driven by the RPO and RTO again. RPO is a recovery point objective with respect to the application, whereas the recovery time objective is availability of application could be, or availability of facility, depends on the extent of damage. Regarding the frequency of backups, one has to decide how frequently they have to take backup and what type of backups, whether it should be full backup, incremental or differential. Location of the backup to be kept is also to be decided. What it is recommended normally in disaster recovery and business continuity, the one set of backup should be always kept remotely from the location. In case if something happens to the existing backups, then the data can be recovered from the remote backups. Now the types of backups, what one should take, it depends. Here full backup means everything is backed up. It is going to take time for both backing up and restoring. Incremental backs up every change since the last backup. Sets an archive bit. Internally it sets an archive bit. This takes less time to back up but more time to restore. Differential backup backs up all the changes since the last full backup every time it runs. More time to take backup but less time to restore. These are all to be considered, and depending on the application, depending on the business, this strategy to be decided. Now we have a table here. In this table the different types of alternative sites here mentioned in column 1, and in the column the row 1 gives the descriptions, like let us go through one by one. This has captured a lot of information, like the type of alternative multiple processing and mirrored site as an alternative. If an organization has chosen what is multi-processing and mirrored site? Fully redundant identical equipment and data. If the organization has gone for such a alternative thing, then the cost is the highest, is the very high. The readiness, the level is availability is quickly they can get back to work. That is, they can restore and then start the normal operation as quickly as possible. But the cost is you have to have a mirrored site, like the exact replica of whatever is available in the organization, the same thing to be maintained at a remote location. So there, that is why the cost is very high. The second one is a mobile site, which is designed to be self-contained IT and communication infrastructure. So you can move it you can get it moved to your location to start the operation. This is high in cost, variable time driven. Actually, you may have to load the data and test the systems. What all readiness is to become ready, you have to perform these tasks. You have to load the data, and also after loading, the systems have to be tested. Then only you can start the operations. Then the next type of site is hot site. This is again, the cost is high. Fully provisioned IT and office, HVAC infrastructure and communications readily available hot site. Short time to load data and test systems. Maybe you can do it on yourself. The cost is high. Then the order becomes from the highest expensive to the lowest expensive. Then the warm site, then the cold site. The warm site is partially equipped, like not switched on. Servers are available, but needs to be connected, configured, switched on. Then backup has to be restored. Then has to be set up. It takes weeks or days, and the cost is moderate. And the lowest is the cold site. The minimal infrastructure is there. It takes weeks or more. Whereas previously, earlier warm site you may manage within days. This will take more time. This cost is very lowest. Depending on the business, one has to choose these alternatives. If the recovery has to be quick from a disaster. Like there are agreements organizations can perform with agencies or with their other similar business. Let us see what are them. Reciprocal agreement or mutual aid agreement. Two or more organizations in the same business agree to same business or whatever the facilities like IT infrastructure. Two or more organizations agree to recover critical operations for each other and share the risk of outage. The considerations here are technology upgrades, obsoleteness, business growth, security and access. These are all the considerations. You have to consider these before entering the reciprocal agreement. Because if the technology is what our company using and what they are using is different, then there is no point in agreeing. Similarly, other factors you have to look at. Another type of agreement is a contingency agreement, an alternate arrangement if primary vendor is interrupted, for example, voice and data communication. For contingency agreement, the providers may share path or lease from other end. And this mostly applies to voice and data communication infrastructure. The third one is a service bureau agreement with an application service provider to process critical functions. Evaluate their loading geography and ask about the backup mode. They will be processed on behalf of you, this service bureau, and then provide the output. And the remote working arrangements, ability to telecommute is the remote working arrangement. Sensitive data controls and unauthorized equipments to be considered. If the employee is going to be dealing with sensitive data and if you do not want him to telecommute, then this is not possible, this alternative. So these are all some of the alternative arrangements that an organization can consider in case of emergency or a disaster kind of a situation. In this session, we will be taking a look at perimeter security. Perimeter security is concerned with the physical security. Security operations, one of the important functions is physical security. The primary goal of physical protection is to control access to the facility. We apply layered defense, that is defense in depth. This is this terminology. Equivalent to layered defense, we use this strategy. What that means? It is defined into facility is segregated into different layers, and each layer will have a protection applicable to that layer. Okay. Now, in general, the perimeter security. What should be the strategy? The first one is to deter, then detect, and then delay, respond. Is to make an intruder to go away, deter, and then if he has come inside, then detect him, and then delay him further progressing, further gaining ground, further entering, and then respond. This is the strategy for perimeter security. What are the barriers that can be employed, that can be natural, rivers, and dense growth of trees or plants. A ditch can be natural barriers. Manufactured barriers includes common like wall, fences, doors, wall of building itself sometimes, no need for a separate wall. Fences, employees doesn't like to be fenced in. Most common 6-foot chain linked fence with the barbed wire on top at a 45-degree angle away from the protected property, as shown here. Some of the barriers that could be deployed. The gates. This session is fully towards the physical protection. Like the next is gate, facilitate and control access. Need to be controlled if ensuring only authorized access. Fewer entry points, better control. So if there are multiple entry points, then you have to place a guard and secure, install whatever mechanism required at all the places. So it is fewer the entry points, the better the control. Walls, best if 7 foot high, with barbed wire on the top of it, on top of the wall. Intrusion detection. How do you detect somebody is intruded? We have a lot of sensors like infrared sensor, microwave can be used. Different types of sensors here. Infrared sensors detect the warmth of a human bodies against ambient ground temperature. How that works? Microwave detect motion similar to radar. Coaxial strain sensitive cable detects if someone is cutting it or climbing over it. Video content analysis and motion path analysis. Algorithms applied to CCTV images detect the intruders. Can tell a person from a cat, and they don't get tired. They don't have to go and check. Acoustics sensor listens for noise in the areas that should be quiet. Normally it should be quiet, but if there is going to be a noise created, there is something wrong there. Acoustic sensors listens to the noise. Lighting is used as a deterrent. Lighting is also very important when it comes to physical security. There are different kinds of lighting system. Continuously you can light if it is critical area, or standby lighting, that is automatically by motion detector or manually. Whenever some motion happens, then the light switches on. Mobile light, manually operated mobile search light. If it is a huge facility like several acres, and then the security want to go and find out if something is wrong, some point of place. Then they deploy this mobile searchlight, and then emergency lighting backup system for during the power failures. Type of lighting, so there are different type of lightings. Fluorescent lighting, highly efficient, cost effective, temperature sensitive, not considered an effective outdoor lighting, but it is for indoor. So that consideration, all these to be considered before putting it in place. Mercury vapor light, extended life, some of them are obsolete now. Mercury vapor light and all no longer being used, I think. Extended life and strong white bluish light, preferred security light. Sodium vapor light, soft yellow light, more efficient than mercury vapor, and used when fog is a problem in the areas where there is fog. Quartz lamps, and then infrared, unseen by human eye, system can see in dark. In this session, let us take a look at physical security aspect of physical access control. Physically, how access control is implemented. The first access control system ensures only authorized people are permitted into controlled areas. That is the purpose of the access control system. First and foremost is card. There are different types of cards that are being used to identify, like magnetic stripe, old technology it is. Then proximity cards, authenticate the card and release the magnetic lock. Different types of cards. Smart cards, a chip on the card holds information, allows physical and logical access. Personal identification verification, smart cards with photo name. Common access card, not no identification is visible. Now closed circuit TV, CCTV, cameras, recorders, switches, monitors allow viewing of recording of security events. It is recorded and then it can be viewed. The one is the surveillance. Events can be viewed from a central area. The security personnel will be sitting and in front of him several monitors with showing different corners of the facility, and they will be monitoring it. This is one. And then assessment can make decisions as to what response needs to be made to an alarm. When an alarm goes off, what is that action to be taken? Then comes the deterrent. This is important, as we have seen several times. Can deter burglary and vandalism for the fear of discovery and prosecution. They are afraid to approach. Even lighting, we spoke about it. When light is there, then the people might not want to come because they will be identified and they are scared. Evidentiary archives, retrieval of images as evidence for prosecution. These are all the uses of the CCTV, deploying CCTV. During the investigations and like incident response, these archivals can be used to see what has happened on a particular day of the event. Guards, deterrence to unauthorized entry, first response to alarms, seek intruders, interact with the employees and provide first aid when necessary. These are all the help that a guard can provide. They provide the first aid and several things in addition to the security job and protecting. The proprietary, that is or internal. The disadvantages is cost, administration, staffing, impartiality and expertise. Those are all the disadvantages of having internal staff themselves as a security. That is why most of the times they employ contractors, externally sourced. Hybrid, that works actually. offers the benefit of both while mitigating the downside of both. Yeah, for the important sensitive areas, one may employ their own staff, and for less critical, they can employ. That is both the combination of both proprietary and contract. Alarm monitoring. The Security Control Center, the central monitoring and assessment space for the access control, CCTV, intrusion detection, fire detection response. Typically ground floor, or this is a place where it is used for these purposes. Typically in ground floor or the basement it is placed. Require primary and secondary power sources. This should not be prone to flooding. Anyway, the entire thing is not to be prone to flooding. In particular, here they state that it should be not flood prone area. Internal security, that is the interior intrusion detection system. Balanced magnetic switch, BMS. In most of the companies they call BMS room, that is why they call the name. That is balanced magnetic switch. Alarms for windows and doors. Motion activated cameras. We have seen this earlier too. Alarm activated on intruder entry to through the field of view. Once he appears, then the alarm goes off. Acoustic sensors, noise generated alarm. Infra-linear beam sensors. These are different types of technology deployed. Alarm generated when a beam is broken. Normally this is employed even in this malls for the entrance. It automatically opens. It senses the beam. And passive infrared sensors. Alarm generated when heat sources moves. Dual technology sensors. Combined technologies reducing false alarms. Visitor control. Most of the companies use escorts. Visitors sign in and sign out on a visitor's log. Controlled waiting area for visitors. Separate controlled waiting area provided with the temporary badges. This is the process normally followed for visitors when visitors come to your office. Buildings and the inside security. Within the building, the doors in frame and building anchorage, door locks, electric lock, electric strikes and magnetic, different types of locks. Anti-passback, that is requires the card to be swiped even when person comes out. Normally they don't have to swipe when they come out. Once they gain entry, they can come out. But some places they monitor whether the person who has entered has come back and at what time he has come back. If you want to get all those details, then anti-passback. Turn slides and man traps. Reduces the risk of tailgating and piggybacking. One cannot stick with another person and then go inside. Here in this slide, we are different types of locks are explained, like rim lock, surface mounted, whereas Mortise lock is all in one. Like you handle both the lock are same. Lock is there in the handle itself. Locking cylinders, also known as tumbler cylinder. And the vendor is Yale. Yale is one vendor who provides such different types of locks. Cipher locks controlled by keypad requires correct code to open. And there are two types of high-tech keys, intelligent keys. Built-in microprocessor identifies the key holder. It is stored inside. Instant keys provides a quick way to disable a key by permitting one turn of master key to change the lock. Now we come to safe, where to store important safes, protect against theft, fire and flood. tool resistant safe. Lot of specifications here like TL15 and TL30 resist entry for 15 minutes and 30 minutes. These are all safes. Vaults are much more powerful like class M, class 1, class 2, class 3. It takes half an hour. The class M, class 1 is 1 hour, and then 2 hours is class 3. These are all ratings provided. Vault is a room or a compartment designed to store valuables, whereas safe is more small items. Containers also can be in a reinforced filling cabinet. Now coming to the key control, like how to control the keys. The key control is one of the biggest risks for a business and the property owners. Basic and most critical elements include in this key control is appoint a key control authority, one person to manage, to implement, execute and enforce policies and procedures. Implement a policy for key issue and collection. What is the policy? One, they should sign it when taking the key, and time to be recorded and things like that. Store keys in a locked cabinet in a secured area. How to store the keys, otherwise it becomes difficult. Utilize a key control program, even software can be used. All keys remain the proprietary of the issuing facility, only issued to those with legitimate need. All keys, this is very important on holidays. People, when they try to enter the facility, they will face problem because of this key issues. Only issue to those with legitimate need. All keys to be returned and accounted for. There's some, it should not be missing. The person should account. Employees ensure keys safeguarded and properly used. That is the responsibility of the employee. In this session, let us take a look at personal safety, that is people safety. The primary goal is protection of personal safety. We have earlier seen, and it is always been stated, that first the people come first, then the property and other computer equipments. So personal security is very important. Disasters and disruptions often threaten the safety of people or personnel, that is employees, as well as stability of the facility. For that matter, need occupant emergency plans. Like how do you treat people if they are in danger, like if they are injured or some such things. So there should be an emergency plan. In-house doctor can be considered. So many, depending on the number of people, employees working, depending on the size of the organization and the type of the function, like a factory. If it is a factory environment, it is different, and if it is going to be an IT software development environment, it is going to be different. While considering the personal safety, safety of people while traveling comes first. Also, when they travel, they carry a lot of assets like a laptop and important documents. They need to be protecting their devices. And also when they stay in a hotel and they leave, they should not be leaving their laptops. They should be taking care of company properties. Also, it is possible shoulder surfing and eavesdropping in the trains and planes and waiting rooms. One should be aware of such acts and then protect information as much as possible. Also, internet connection, like hotels provide unsafe internet connection. That is why the people should carry their own connection, internet connection method. And duress is another topic that relates to the concept of a person doing something normally different, which normally they will not do, but they will do under threat of harm. In this session, let us inspect the incident response process. What are the different phases in the incident response? Incident response process has 6 phases. First, detecting the incident, something has gone wrong, and then responding to it, reporting it, recovering from that incident, lessons learned, and then root cause analysis. In the recovery, one can eradication of the issue is possible in certain cases, and restoration of the affected systems. 2 points there in recovery. How do I detect an incident? If it is a virus or a malware, antivirus systems help in detecting and alerting. Also, we have seen this SIEM, Security Information Event Monitoring, Event Management. This system, this is a tool, that gives an alert. So we detect some such incident has happened. From the log, when they are reviewing the log, most of the organizations deploy tools for log management. This tool, could give you an alert that something has gone wrong, some incident has happened. And finally, the boundary devices like IDS and IPS, they generate alerts. So thus, we understand that some event has happened, incident has happened, and start doing the response, reporting, and recovery process. In this session, during this session, let us take a look at the engine behind the IDS, which is the core, engine. How on what basis and how it works. This is about the IDS engine. It will do a pattern matching, signature or pattern based. Looks for telltale signs in the log for known attacks, like antivirus signatures. For the IDS also has got signatures. It will look the signature and do the detection. That is one type of detection. The another one is anomaly detection. In the anomaly detection also there are 2 types. One is based on protocol and another is based on the history or the statistics. Protocol based one, it checks the network traffic complies with the protocol. If not, then alarm is raised. Whereas in the statistical anomaly, what happens is that it compares the baseline of normal traffic. How the traffic will be normal. The differences. If on a particular day, if it is varying, then alert will be generated. Another method is stateful matching of intrusion detection. We talked about the stateful firewalls earlier when we were doing the communication, network communication security. The same stateful, but here we use for the intrusion detection. Scans for attack signature in the context of streams of data or overall system behavior rather than individual packets. Instead of checking individual packets, it checks for the signatures. And how the response, how the intrusion response takes place using alarms and signals. The purpose of incident detection is to alert the administrator to potentially harmful behavior. So it raises alarm or sends signals. Sensors detects an event, then produces an appropriate notification. Can be informational or alerting someone or acting actively triggering a response to deal the problem. It can also, after informing, it can trigger a response to that particular anomaly. Control and communication. determines how to handle a notification alert is sent as an email or a message or a pager, text or a voice message. Control and communication. Once an event untoward incident is detected, there are several ways and means of communicating it to the administrator, either through email or instant messenger, however it has been configured. Initiate a relay system to ensure all whom may be affected get notified, and a message where business to send, where to send, local or remote. These are all the response, intrusion response. IDS analysis engine, like I was talking about the IDS analysis engine, it should be regularly updated as a part of maintenance, and also to be tuned. This hardware needs to be tuned and hardened so that it works efficiently. A technically knowledgeable person can handle this kind of highly sophisticated hardware. It should be kept physically secure. And IDS IPS uses whitelisting and listing technique. Whitelisting is trustworthy, whereas blacklisting is a problem. If it is blacklisted, then an alert will be sent. Based on also spam filtering. Spams, people may be allowing. It is unwanted, unsolicited mails that needs to be filtered. Another technique used is sandboxing. Sandboxing is isolating. A sandbox allows programs or processes to run in their own isolated virtual environment. We are talking here this sandboxing as a concept. In testing, they call it as sandbox testing. That means it is an isolated environment where they do the testing. Similar thing, programs and processes to run on their own isolated virtual environment gives limited access to files and systems, and typically runs in a restricted subset command. What happens in sandbox stays within the sandbox itself. Java uses sandboxing, so code can be written once that will be executed on any machine. Write once, run anywhere concept, the Java concept. The security flaws in some Java implementation allow untrusted code to bypass the sandboxing mechanism. Just for information, this one about the Java sandboxing. Now coming the concept why we touched upon sandboxing is this honeypot. Honeypot is similar to sandboxing. What is a honeypot? Honeypots are decoys or decoy servers or systems that is set up to gather information about the attacker on an intruder. To cheat the intruder, see, instead of getting affected with our real system, we keep honeypots outside the demilitarized zone, outside the official network, company network, and then try to attract the intruder. He gets distracted. Instead of attacking a server inside the network, he gets attracted by this honeypot. And the advantage for us is we are diverting this attacker's attention. At the same time, we are going to be collecting what he is looking for, collecting signature and things like that. They don't replace other security systems. They are an extra layer. They may be deployed in or outside the firewall. Mostly it is deployed outside the firewall, but inside can also be deployed. HoneyNet is a large network of honeypots where one honeypot is insufficient. Some organizations may have to deploy a network of honeypots. Honeyform is a centralized collection of honeypots and analysis tools. The function of the honeypot is to distract the user and then distract the user from the real servers, and then attract him towards this fake server and then collect more information on the type of attack and things like that. There are several types of honeypots in practice. Let us see them. He emulates a vulnerable server, this honeypot called Glassstop. This emulates a vulnerable server, can emulate thousands of vulnerabilities designed to be a web crawler and discovered by search engines. This emulates vulnerabilities. The attacker will think that this is a real vulnerability and then he will try to exploit. But what is happening is that we are only watching him and we are collecting information about the type of attack. That is another ghost USB, emulates an USB, mounts a fake USB drive to enable capture and analysis of malware that uses USB drive to replicate. This is again another sandbox to cheat and then collect information about the attacker malware. KF sensor is a Windows based. It attracts and detects hackers by simulating vulnerable system services and trojans. All these three are different types of honeypots. Now we talk about the UTM. UTM is nothing but unified, which combines all the functionalities of firewall, antivirus, IDS, and IPS. It can use here in the pictorial representation. You will be able to see it can combine the functionality of VPN, firewall, anti-spam. All these functionalities are combined in this UTM.